And I'm going to go up here. You should be able to see a slide that says student demographics. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Good morning. I'm Kurt Stumpf, superintendent. I'm in my second year here in Pequot Lakes. And for the record, I don't mind if you have questions during this presentation. I'm just going to talk a little bit about who our students are and what we're seeing with our demographics here at the school, and then just some highlights from last year and from this year. And this is part of my State of the Schools address that we're finalizing some details, and will be presented in a larger scale with some additional information, such as strategic planning and student achievement and some other highlights that we have going on. But I'll give you a snippet of what we're doing now. So this is based upon the most current year that MDE reports, although it hasn't changed a lot, but you can look on your screen and see who our students are here in the Pequot Lakes School District in K-12. So you can see, as it's probably not a surprise, that a vast majority of our students are white at 95%, and you can see the other percentages there on your screen. And then the next slide breaks it down by some different demographics, and English learners are those people who where English is not their primary language. And there's some interesting identifiers there, but I'll leave it at that. And if you have more questions, we can dive into that. And then special education, or students on an IEP are around 14%. Free and reduced meals was around 16%. That has greatly increased this year. I think just a quick interesting piece of information is that in order to qualify for free and reduced meals, families had to complete an application and then qualify. And usually it was completing that application that really was the hiccup for most families. They don't have time, they don't want to, whatever the barriers were, we try to remove a ton of them. But still, I think most districts were seeing that as a huge barrier. So this year, the state is part of a pilot program that is having families directly qualify if you're on SNAP or receive some other benefits, Medicare or Medicaid, and some other of those pre-qualifiers. So every school district, including Pequot Lakes, has seen that percentage drastically increase. We're over 40% right now. Not that our demographics has changed, but again, the state is part of this pilot program where kids automatically qualify for free and reduced meals. And so it turns out, I think it's a win for families and for the school district and for our community. And there's some talk of the legislature about doing some different stuff and with free and reduced meals even moving forward. But so this year it's looking a little different in homeless. And that year we had one, and I know we have, two or three in my 2 years that we're working with families for students who are homeless. You can see early childhood enrollment numbers. There, I think the one thing that stands out, 3-year-old programming, we've had the most that we've ever had, and as you're going to see in other slides, that's sort of because we've changed some of the requirements to try and remove barriers for our families. For instance, the barrier that was there is that it was a mandatory parent component if you were going to access our 3-year-old program. And so we removed that barrier starting this school year, and you can see, of course, then those numbers jumped, and I think it's a better service to our families. You're also going to see on the 4-year-old side that we dropped this year from 60 to 44 students, which again, we try to remove some barriers, and we have a new kindergarten program, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, which I think is impacting that number, but I think it's a good sign for our district, and it's a great service to our families. The enrollment history, where we've been, and And up to this point, you can see the school year is the far left column. The total number of students is the second column. And so for this year, it's around 1,790 students, or 1,790. And the two next columns are really interesting. The resident students, you can see that back in 2011, 2012, it was around 1,382 students. We have slowly dropped, or at this point, we're less than what we were back in 11, 12. This year, we're at 1,352 students that are residents of our school district that attend our schools. And then the next, the far right column, the non-resident column, you can see that that's where we have seen an increase of non-resident students attending Pequot Lakes schools from 245 up to this year, we're at 438 students. You can say what you want to attribute that to, great teachers, great staff, great programming, just a great experience for kids. And I think each family probably has their own reasons why they're choosing Pequot Lakes schools. But I do want to credit our community, our staff, and our school system for really having high quality schools for families. And then the last slide, as far as enrollment, is we had a demographer come in and try and do some projections. So I'll just jump to the very right column, which it says high K, which means high kindergarten, and high migration, meaning families coming in, migrate in. And you can see that according to that, I think we're scheduled to increase, by 50 to 80 to 90 students in the next couple of years as well. So that is a quick snippet of who our students are. I guess maybe I should pause and see if there's any questions.
Kurt, you had talked about an academy for some of the kids.
Yeah.
How's that working?
Yes, that's yep. Let's just talk about it right now. It's sort of weird presenting when you can't see anybody and you're just talking to a slideshow. So yes, that's in my next spot, but that's a good segue. We have Patriot Academy, which remember in our 4-year-old numbers, you've seen that drop. I think it was like 60 and then it went down to 44 this year. So what we had found is that, I don't know if for those of you that had kids and those of you that had kids with late birthdays who were really on that border of sending them to kindergarten, even though they're not ready, or holding them back for another year of preschool because they might not be ready, whatever it was, for socially or whatever it's academically. Families have a vast majority of reasons. So the program that we have started this year is called Patriot Academy, which is a bridge program from early childhood to kindergarten. It gives families one more option. The parents and the families are 100% in the driver's seat of this program. So they choose to send their kid to preschool, they choose to send their kid to kindergarten, or this middle program, which is Patriot Academy. And so the idea is that you have to be kindergarten eligible. And if you're kindergarten eligible, you can go to Patriot Academy. It's full day. It's just like the kindergarten schedule, but the rigor isn't as high and it as a slower pace. So in kindergarten, they might count up to 25 or 30 as their standards. Here, they're likely going to count to 15 or learn to count to 15, because the idea of Patriot Academy is that most of those kids will go on to kindergarten the following year. But it's a free year of programming for our parents because their kid is kindergarten eligible. It's a bridge between the two early childhood and kindergarten programs. And so the cool part, and I've seen this program before and had it in my previous district, the really, really cool part of this program is we started with about 13 students, and a month in, 2 parents were like, hey, my kid is doing really well. I think they should be in kindergarten because that following year, I want them to go to first grade. The parents were able to make that choice, and those kids then, beginning of October, went into regular kindergarten class. And the opposite happened. We had some parents really things weren't going well. They weren't sure. They had questions going in, and we had a parent go from kindergarten to Patriot Academy. And so right now that Patriot Academy class went from 13, it's currently down to 10. But I think we're seeing the benefits right now already is that parents have another option. It's free for them since their kids are kindergarten age. So I could talk all day, but did that help, or did people have any questions on that program?
Good, thank you.
Hey, Kurt, do
Yes.
you limit open enrollment and non-resident enrollment?
That's a great question. No, we don't necessarily limit it. There has been certain circumstances where we have. For instance, last year was my first year here. We were seeing a really high increase in Nisswa students attending Pequot Lakes for a vast majority of reasons. And, part of that, as we know, Brainerd, for whatever, I don't want to get into the political stuff, but for whatever reason, Brainerd decided to go to Mass. We weren't Mass, and so that was attractive, I will say, to some families. Right or wrong, I'm not sure. But we always told families, don't come because we don't have Mass at the beginning of the year. We don't know. Come because you love our school district. So we were seeing this high influx of families. So last year we actually had to cap enrollment in 2 grades because the class sizes were going to get way too big and we weren't going to add a teacher. The other classes, it was good to get more students because that's where funding comes from, but we had to cap it in 2 grades last year. We actually never went over that cap. We hit that cap once, I believe in 5th grade, but then we never had to turn any family away because some people move in and out throughout the year. That practice has happened a couple times, I believe, in the previous 10 years where they've capped off a grade or 2 grades that year.
Now, Kurt, when you say you had Brainerd had math, is that MATH, mathematics, or is that an acronym for something?
Math.
M-A,
Oh.
yeah, like actual, remember during the
Oh.
COVID?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Anything else? Otherwise, I'll jump into my last couple slides. I'll take up my budget. Sorry, I'm just pulling it back up. There, share. Huh. You would think I'd be able to work technology, but
It looked like you had quite a few windows open, Kurt, so don't worry.
yeah,
We understand.
I'm not usually like that, but yes, that has been an issue. I don't need shoot. Okay, now we're back in business. Share screen. And this, share. Now, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, school year highlights. I've got 3 slides. Just some highlights from last year. I'm not sure if we talked through some of these before. I know I presented early last year, but I'll just real quick run through some of these. Midday early childhood transportation. And again, I think our mantra over the last 2 years just has been, let's figure out what are some barriers for our families and for our kids and keep doing right by them. So we had found out for those families doing preschool programming, the half-day programs, that the early childhood transportation, that they might had to work, and so that was a barrier for some of our families. So we had rooms already on routes that were already going for midday, so we could easily give parents the option for us to bring their child home if they were in the morning session, or pick their child up if their child was in the afternoon session for our 3 and 4-year-old programmings for a small fee. So we were able to offer that, and we had a number of parents take us up on midday transportation. We continued with academic supports, and those have continued this year, whether it's during the day or after school. Which leads into the after school tutoring as well. We've started activity bus last year for those students who stay after school, whether it be athletic related, fine arts related, or after school tutoring. So that bus leaves at 4:30 and has a number of drop-offs within our district. We've added mental health supports last year, including Nystrom and Associates. They have not been able to fill that position this year, although we are getting a new therapist in with a different organization at the end of this month. So we're continually trying to look for and add mental health supports for our students. One of the things I was most proud of is that we have co-located services for therapy for students during the school year. So their parents don't have to take off work to bring them somewhere else. We have therapists on site at both buildings throughout the days. Not every day, but Eagle View might be 2 days a week, and here at the high school might be 3 days a week with 1 or 2 therapists.
Which type of therapy?
It's just our therapy services are through Northern Pines. So
Okay.
it depends on what the student needs but it's basically just like going to outside therapy, but it's co-located here at the school.
So it's behavioral health, not physical therapy.
No, exactly. This is primarily it is 100% mental health. We do have OT and PT services, but that's through different programming. One of the issues that we see though with co-located services, or those therapy services that happen during the school year, is that it would be great if they happen during the summer, but as you can imagine, parents work, kids don't have, some kids, this isn't a broad stroke, but some kids don't have transportation, can't get to school, and without that continuity of services, you sort of take a major step back, or you lose track, start the next school year. So we were really interested in continuing services throughout the summer to help our families and to help our students, but yet not have an added cost to the district. So we were able to receive about $5,000 in grants to provide summer transportation for therapy. So basically what that looked like is we hired a driver, and we had one of our school vans, and they literally went from house to house, picked up a kid, dropped them off here at school for therapy, went to pick up the other kid, another kid, dropped that person off, that first person was done, and then they took that person home. So constantly basically just transporting kids throughout the day, and made sure that all kids had access to in-person therapy during the summer, which heard just a number of positive comments. And again, I think that just highlights, we're just trying to remove barriers for our families and do right by them. And we were, like I said, lucky enough to receive some grants, and that's the plan again this year, is to receive more grant money for that.
Kurt, if I could ask another question?
Yeah, go right. Yeah.
It seems like a number of your bullets really require transportation, and we've read so much about how bus districts or school districts are having trouble with bus drivers. It sounds like you're able to meet the need.
Yeah, I'll stop presenting. Bob, that's a great question. I'm going to sing the praises. I don't know if you know who Randy Maxfield is. He's our transportation director for our district. He is an outstanding leader, to be honest with you. We have not had to cancel one bus route at all this school year. And that's not because we haven't had our challenges. I'm just going to tell you that. It's because he is the master at trying to problem solve, and he can combine routes at the split of, something, and say, we're down a driver, you're picking up these kids on this route, you're picking up these kids on this route, and we're going to get everybody to school. And so he's done a really good job of leading our transportation department and staff. And you were absolutely right. We've been fortunate for our drivers, or with our drivers.
Thank you.
Yes. And then the last bullets are just, I believe, we've talked a little bit about mental health, and I think we've gotten back to some activities where kids feel a greater sense of belonging. It's great to be in school. It's great to have that they're having lunches together and having activities. But I think providing some of these additional activities where they can connect with other classmates or other students in different grades outside of the school day is outstanding. So Wolf Ridge, our 6th grade, goes on that 3-day, 2-night overnight excursion where they learn about outdoor stuff. And we've done respect retreats. The track and field day was a big hit that we brought that back for elementary. We brought back Day of Caring last year. Relay for Life was a huge event where students spent the whole day out at the track and raised money for cancer awareness. And then we've gone on a lot of field trips, especially at our elementary school. So some of those things, if we all think back to our careers in school, that might have had a huge impact and was maybe a highlight of a year, is some of those things that maybe occurred outside the school day. So. And then, as you're well aware, we've had various fine arts activity, athletic accomplishments. The most recent one I'm proud of is our one-act play for, I think, the first time ever qualified out of subsections into sections. They placed in the top 2 in subsections, and last week went to sections, took 5th, but it was a really good accomplishment. Didn't make it to state, but again, it just sort of highlights the dedication. Sometimes we see the athletic accomplishes a little bit more, but we do have a lot of fine arts and other accomplishments in speech as well, that we got kids doing great things. And then I guess the last slide that I have is just the stuff that we are changing for this year. You've already heard about some of the top 3 things of Patriot Academy programming for 3-year-olds, and we're actually adding more transportation options that are free for parents, that aren't costing us, the district, anything, but give parents the option for us to transport their child. We've added social work time because we know some kids are struggling with mental health, and sometimes that manifests itself into behavior. I don't want to say they're struggling with behavior, because there's usually underlying problems that aren't getting worked through. So we've added some social work time where we're doing a facilities study, and our school board is taking in some information on our current facilities and some 5 to 10 year plans of facilities. And we'll have a meeting in March to dig into that further. And then curriculum updates. The state sort of had paused it the 2 or 3 years during COVID. And we, for instance, we're working on right now science implementation, since there's new science standards in 2 years. We're working on a language, English language audit to look at our reading scores, our phonemic awareness, and see what gaps we have in our ELA program or English language arts program, and trying to, again, do right by our kids. So that highlights or sort of encompasses a lot of the information that I want to talk about. Maybe I'll just pause and see if there's any more questions.
The need for more mental health services. Can you I know you can go on. Could you identify 1 or 2 reasons for that?
I can. It's going to be speculation. I don't have research behind it, and I think the pandemic and what happened during that time was challenging on kids to have some structure, some routines, some sense of normalcy, and for that to be taken away. And if you think about it, we're all trying to do our best, and this is not a judgment on anybody. I'd have to look myself in the mirror, but if we look back at what words we use with kids, it was isolate, quarantine, remain social distanced. And that's probably goes against, what most kids want to do, or their natural need to connect with other people. And so the idea that last year was challenging with, again, mental health, and again, that manifests itself into behaviors because they're out of the norm for so many years. And so I think we're still working our way out of it. And there's a great need for therapists. We've been fortunate. Last year, we got our waiting list down to 0. This year, we've seen a waiting list for mental health or therapy services increase again. We've reached out to some local services they can't find therapists. And so we're fortunate finally to get one through Northern Pines here in February. But I think not just schools, but I think the general population is just short therapist or therapy services.
Looks like Mary
Kurt.
got something to add there.
Well, Kurt, just in support, I worked at, I was a licensed psychologist and I worked in the Pine River district. And I also did some stuff over, with Emily's charter school. But I started in the schools in 1989. It was well before a lot of the schools were doing it. There have always been needs for children and high school students for mental health that parents are not always able to get to. And so I totally support that there are more needs maybe now because of some of that. But I would tell you that I would think, and I don't know, all the statistics, but I think that COVID just exaggerated stuff that was already there. I mean, there have constantly been needs for children and high school students to get services. And I could never get all the kids in. I mean, I was juggling, and this was, I would just go and arrive. This is before it switched and changed as their needs changed. But it was kind of like eventually I was running like part of my private practice there as well as in my normal office. But I would walk in the building and the principal would have 5 kids for me to see that day that weren't even on my schedule for my planned schedule. There was just so much stuff. So I really support you in what you're doing. And I think it's too bad there are not more rural. I think there are programs trying to get more rural therapists, but it's really a need. I mean, it's always been there, I mean, you go into some of these homes and you meet these families have got some generational stuff going on. A lot of us do, there's stuff that just needs to get dealt with. It's hard work.
Are you still open for more questions or comments?
As long as Stephen is, I am. Yes.
I'm just impressed with the focus that you have on trying to remove barriers for families. I think that's just outstanding. Recognizing that the application part that you were describing, make it more automatic. And the numbers jumped. The need was there. Just people, either didn't have the mindset or the wherewithal to be able to bring them to the next level. And I think it's just great what you're doing to advocate for the parents and the kids. So great job.
Thank you. And I'll just speak to that a little. I think schools and I'll put myself in that category too. Sometimes schools are notorious for the next shiny object, the next big thing to bring into our schools that might not have an impact on student achievement or education, but it might look great. And we've all done it in the schools. And so I just think, let's get back to simplicity and making sure we do right by our kids, remove barriers, and making sure we provide an outstanding school experience, both educationally and socially, emotionally as well, and support kids. But and if we can give kids that foundation and make sure every door is open to them when they leave our campus at 12th grade, the better off we're all going to be. And so we've actually tried to get rid of some initiatives we've started before, just saying, I'm not sure it has any impact on student achievement. Teachers like, yeah, we can get rid of these. It's just taking up time and our focus isn't where it needs to be. So we've tried on the flip side to get rid of some of those things that we're not seeing the benefits for.
Good for you. And is it Interact that's still driving the Relay for Life?
I believe so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to ask that question, Bob. And the other question I have is, a number of years ago, our club went together to the play that the high school was putting on, but I think that was probably in the fall. Is there anything coming up though that the students, we did kind of a family night. We went for pizza first and then went to see the play as a club with our family members. And it was really an enjoyable evening. Is there anything coming up that we should know about?
Great Gatsby is coming up, but that's through the GLAPA, the Greater Lakes area. That group, to be honest with you, for those of you that don't know, our auditorium is booked every day during the school year, whether it's our plays, our one act play, or GLAPA, our community theater program. But it's constantly going, and I believe they're doing Shrek this summer as a musical or a family. So yeah, so I think the Great Gatsby is coming up. I'm not sure what's coming up after that directly, but one of my other people that I tried to get on this, but she had other commitments and had other focus areas, but Joelle Tweet is our community ed director, who's tried to do more outreach and more programming for all people in our community, whether you're
Since you mentioned that, Kurt, we did, since Diane's in down south, I've been picking up the mail. We did get a notification from her, as we did here at church as well, which invites us to put ads in the community ed brochure, which is something we may want to talk about within the context of RET, to get an ad out there as well. So just something to think about.
For some time, Kurt, there had been work with various organizations around the community. I'm thinking of Pequot Lakes School in particular, developing skill sets that would be applicable to future careers. Are you still working on that with other corporations?
Yes. So Brenda Helmerich has long since had our internship program. So number of students go out to Pequot Tool or welding, or we've got some that go to elementary and actually have some experiences in the field. And actually, we had somebody go over to the elementary school. We had a couple kids, and a couple kids were excited. Yes, this aligned with what they thought it was and are excited about it. We actually had a kid, I believe, who went over there to the elementary and said, I'm not sure teaching is for me. And after being around that for a couple months, which is perfect, which is why you have internships, right, at this young age, to give them some exposure and make sure that they're not, if it's going to college or going to that field, maybe they get some information ahead of time that better helps them make decisions. So we still have our internship program. We're constantly looking for business and students and try and partner with that. And so Brenda is retiring for next year, and we have a number of applicants who have applied for that position. So we'll continue to do that. We just had the business fair. I don't know if any of you were able to. I actually think, who was able to take part in that? Bruce, you were here for that, weren't you? Okay.
No, I was out of town.
Okay, but we had, I don't know if it was 7, it probably was about 60 businesses in our gym. Sophomores went in, they were able to talk to somebody from a field and get more information and start building some connections. So we had that last week, a career fair for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
Great.
Say, Kurt, do you have the date for the Day of Caring?
Yes, I do, actually. It's Day of Caring is Wednesday, May 3rd.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's 8 o'clock. We have a board meeting immediately following. If you're able to stick around and would like to join us, please do. Any other announcements?